Right. Anyway, I'm sorry, dude. I'm gonna have to stop this.
Okay.
Oh God, and Benny, honestly, we're gonna get through this. Right. This is actually take whatever now because I previously we were on a roll, weren't we, Blackbeard? We were
Yeah.
getting on with it, and I forgot to include his audio. Hello, welcome to another video. This video is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be like similar to a flip or flop, but we'll be talking recorded, live recorded, in kind of a podcast kind of feel. I don't know what we'll call it. So if you enjoy the content, what we're talking about, the game and stuff like that, give us a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. Hope you enjoy, people. I'm joined with Blackbird, also known as Blackbeard in the community. He has played the game for 3 seasons, coming up to 4 seasons now. Where myself, I only went from, I'd say, 2 seasons officially stopped and then come back for Halloween, didn't I? So yeah, anyway, welcome to the video. Video's gonna be back. The game mechanics, graphics, cosmetics, everything and anything about Skull and Bones. And see if we can come to like a conclusion of where do you think it will possibly go in the future. Okay, so like I said, I first started out my adventures on this game season 1 and ended it in season 2 after the poorly written storyline about the Hubite twins, which started out as something really good and then turned out to end really poor. The content what was released over that period felt like it was getting rushed within 2 weeks, followed by nothing but constant bugs, issues, problems, and loppy gameplay. Well, Blackbeard, what's your take on, the seasons so far, as you were saying a minute ago?
Well, I started playing early in season one, which was when they introduced Philippe Lepeste.
That were a good character, that I must admit.
I
I
thoroughly
liked
enjoyed
him. Yeah, I
Yeah,
liked him.
really enjoyed
He,
it.
that guy felt like he was the king of the sea. To me, he felt like David Jones, an amateur version of David Jones of Ubisoft.
It was a very tough boss fight.
Yes, definitely, and it felt like that we was actually team players trying to fully defeat something, and it was like that kind of division feel when you're trying to take down a boss and you're working as a group, and all the call outs are going out and stuff like that. And it was just so good. Even the sounds of cannons and stuff like that going off, and me turning around and saying, "I need heals! I need heals! I'm gonna sink!"
Yeah, they needed healing ships there.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. But yeah, as you were saying, you started in season 1, didn't you?
Yes, I mean there was a lot of problem. Well, no, I won't say problems. There were things that could have been better. For instance, things to do with the factories and the funding issues. It
Yeah,
was very, very expensive. It was somewhere between 35 and 40,000 silver
yeah.
to fund each factory every 2 days when it came up. There was no auto pickup. There was no
Oh
assistance.
yeah. You had to do the cargo ship run.
Yes,
kind of
you had
thing.
to go and do it every 2 days. Go around and collect them all when they were full. Which sort of had some good points, but mostly bad points. I mean, the good
Yeah,
points were that you could spend a couple of hours sailing around Africa and pick up every tree, every log, every fabric, everything that you found on the way, and all the shipwrecks, and you could make a really good use of the time while you
yeah.
were picking up.
See, when it came to that, I liked going around Africa and going around. Oh, what's is it? Red Isle? Is that what they call it? Red Island? I forgot what I call it now. It's that one that's next to St Anne's.
Yeah, that's Red Isle.
Yeah. I used to love doing a route round there, a routine, and then I'd go straight off to Africa, pick it all up, and then take it back to St Anne's.
Yeah.
And I'd sail. I won't fast travel or anything like that. I'd sail all the way up to the East Indies, and I hated doing the East Indies. I could not stand it with a passion.
Well, you probably won't believe it, but in season one, I did not claim any of the East Indies factories.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I never touched them. It was way too far away and it was way too bad a trip.
Yeah,
I remember the main reason for not collecting or even getting the factories for the East Indies was that most of the boss captains off the bounty boards that they all spawned in the East Indies, and there was no way you could get past one of them without getting sank or getting severely beaten up. So
yeah,
I didn't bother with the East Indies at all. I left them.
yeah. I remember that. Um, it it was kind of irritating, and especially when you did them bonus runs where everyone was starting to attack. How were it? Nah, I forgot. When you were collecting your loot, were you an instant target?
Yes, they used to spawn in. At that time, it was La Peste ships, and they could be quite hard to sink. They were level 11, 12, and 13 were the hardest ones.
Yeah,
And also the rogues spawning literally right in front of you. Um,
yeah,
and they were the one-shot wonders when you had one of the sniper rogue ship, they could one-shot you. So you
yeah,
still had to be careful collecting your pieces of eight. And even going back for your crate when you'd been sank, it wasn't a sure thing. I remember plenty of times I got sank just going back for my chest that contained the pieces of eight.
yeah,
Oh yeah, but the worst thing about season one was that it felt like a chore. After the first few times that you'd done it, it was starting to get a bit long in the tooth.
Oh,
And
yeah, because I remember when there were groupers and we were doing that, and it was just it was terrible. It just grew boring and tiring and stuff, and especially when they announced that they were restarting. And I turned around to you and I said, "Are they taking everything off us?" And
yeah,
you told me that it was around about it were 3,000, 300,000, were it, or something like that
yeah,
for gold.
everybody was going to be capped at 300,000 pieces of eight, and everything
Yeah,
else, if you hadn't spent it, you lost it.
and
Yeah,
everyone wanted improvement to warehouse, didn't they? And never got it. Never got anything in season two.
yeah, it didn't
Um,
come until the last 2 weeks. Two
no,
weeks before the end of season two, it came, and they increased it to 250.
yeah. But when you look back from how it was season three, would you say you'd rather have season one or season three?
Um, Season one had its own problems, and it was hard work, and there was no auto collect, no signing ships. So I would definitely say I'd rather have season three and the mechanics
Yeah,
that they brought in with season two. towards
Yeah.
the end of season 2. But the only thing I think they missed off season 1 is that was when they should have started the extra 50 places.
Yeah.
The warehouse spaces. They should have started that at season 1. So when you came into season 2, you had 250. Come into season 3, you've got 300.
Yeah.
And then maybe at season 4 up another 50 and maybe 350.
Yeah.
The fact that they left it an entire season, I think, really did them more damage than than they could ever be able to calculate. Because
Yeah.
there was a lot of people that were throwing away or well, no, at that time you couldn't salvage them like you can now.
Mm.
That they were having to sell things that you couldn't get hold of in the game elsewhere just for a few 50 silver in some cases. So
Mm.
yeah, that was a really big mess up. They should have started the extra warehouse earlier in the game history.
Yeah. Definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
So when it came to season 2, obviously the story progressed. It went from Lepes to the Hubat twins. And just to recap, the Hubat twins have been exiled from France due to killing someone live on stage in front of the king. The king was furious at the Hubat twins, and instead of beheading and executing them, they exiled them. And of course, they was so upset and stuff. And my impression from it, they must have done a plea deal with the king and turned around and said, right, we'll go out to so and so, we'll hunt pirates, we'll get treasure gold for France and stuff like that, and we'll build his reputation back, and hopefully the king will have his back. And that's what they set out to do. When it came to that and the animation and stuff and the leaks of the designs and stuff, oh my god, it looked beautiful. It looked like they promised something. And especially when I saw on, I think it was IGN article, it showed in the first weeks of a cutscene, it shows you a little bit of the Hubat twins, what they look like in a cutscene. And it turned out it was something that was later on brought into the game. The Hubat twins are absolutely brilliant, brilliant thing to brought in. But I just got so disappointed at the end of the season when they was poorly written out. It felt that entire season was rushed completely from start to finish, with it full of bugs along the way, bugs, glitches, exploits, everything. And it didn't feel like a season at all. It just felt like, right, we've got to do something. There you go. Job's done. Felt like a lot of college graduates had worked there for 5 weeks just to produce that. That's what it felt like. What are your thoughts on it?
It was a good storyline. The fact that they were opera singers in France. Yeah, um, the only thing I'd say is that it was a little rushed.
Yeah,
Because in week 1 and 2 we got to meet them, we got to fight them.
yeah, you were
Um,
brilliant. That you were
I
absolutely brilliant.
I think the first one came in week 1, and then the second one came in week 2. So at the beginning you couldn't do them both together, but they were there, and there was some cosmetics tied to them as long as you did them enough times.
Yeah,
Um, But yeah, it did feel a little bit rushed. I think by the time we got to the middle of season 2, all the storyline had been finished, and there was just the boss fights left to do. So it's yeah, I would say that they could have spaced that out a lot better.
Yeah.
But I think the reason behind it is that there were some new blueprints that were made available.
Yeah.
And what they realized was that you actually needed those blueprints because it was for the Rhapsody of the Deep armor, which is the one that actually guards against the torpedoes. So I think they brought in that storyline a lot faster than they were going to because they realized that unless people could actually make the armor, you were just going to get sank all the time by the torpedoes.
Yeah.
So I think that was the reason why it was rushed.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that they introduced with season 2 was Lestari,
Mm-hmm.
which sad to say that the first time it was rolled out, it had a bug, and that was you were supposed to be able to go and get it from the bounty board every 30 minutes as a group, and then each time you fought it and won, you would then get an item to take back to the Seamaster. Sea Hunter Master, sorry, and you would be able to get a chest. And when it was first released, it only gave you the chest the first time you did it each day, which meant that lots and lots of people decided not to bother doing it,
Yeah.
which was a major letdown. They did not do a quick fix, they left it, and they did it as a regular update on a Tuesday. Which definitely sucked. They could have done that on the Thursday night like they do with their emergency ones.
Yeah.
I mean, I was one of the people. I mean, you had to have a big group to do that one, and again, you needed a healer. And so there was a lot of us. I mean, we were turning up 15, 16 people doing Lestari to try and get the trophy, and the drop rates were atrocious.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, once they fixed it and you could then get it, I mean, we were spawning it every 30 minutes and the drop rates were absolutely abysmal. Yeah. I mean, you could actually count on your hand how many people actually had a Lestari trophy at that point. And when you consider there's 15 people doing it, so that's 5 groups of 3 people, and they're all getting the chest every 30 minutes, but you could count on one hand out of a group of 20 how many people had actually got a Lestari trophy at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, they seriously messed that up. And it was only there for 2 weeks. So
I know.
it's like the first week it was broken. You could only get a chest once a day. And the second week, that's when people started realizing, well, I'm getting a chest every 30 minutes. I've been doing it for 12 hours. So I've had 24 chests. And it's like, I've not got anything. There was still an awful lot of people that still never dropped a Lestari chest. So it was very disappointed for that. And it was a difficult battle. That was definitely a 15-20 minute battle. So it was, yeah, that was a big thumbs down from me.
Yeah, definitely. There were a lot of stuff that was brought out, especially the new ones. Were it the races? What were brought out?
Oof. And
Uh,
the races were a disappointment. The one in the East Indies was so difficult. I mean, trying to get a decent time on that one, and it was simply because of the wind. I mean, you couldn't plan anything. There was absolutely no way of being able to plan. Because it all depended at the time you were standing there and the counter was counting down at the race marker. And the wind would literally change against you as the 5 seconds counted down 5 to 1.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was impossible. But I think they did that on purpose. They didn't want people getting good times. Which I think is the reason why they expanded, because they said they were only going to give the special something or other that you got for it, that they said they were only going to give that to the top 100. And then when they heard the outcries of just how difficult the races were, not just because of the wind, but the fact that some of the corners were so difficult that you couldn't help but bang into things, and then that shaved off seconds of your time. I think generally in season 2, the races were a big letdown. And again, each time you did the race, you got a chest. And the drop rates of the furniture that you could get from doing that, it was terrible again. It was like I spent at least one full day on each of the 3 races, an entire day, maybe 10 to 12 hours, just trying to shave off them few seconds and get a chest, which I would then open to find, oh look, it's just got the same crap in it again. I've not got the furniture. And indeed, the only way I ever did get one of the secret caches was it was a race I'd done before, and I hadn't opened the chest. And at that point, you were actually in game with me.
Yeah, I remember that.
You'd not been able to get much time to do the races, so I said to you, "Here, have my chest." And as soon as you opened that chest, you actually dropped the secret cache, and that was the only time I ever saw it. I'd given it to you, which then you gave me back, so I did end up with one in the end.
Yeah, because I was at that point where I didn't lose interest. I was losing more to do with the mechanics aspect and was getting too involved with cosmetics, graphics, and the lore side of it. I did notice a couple of comments on Twitter. Someone posted a picture on not Sea Thieves, Skull and Bones, and they said, I like how there's a majority of black people in this game more than white people. Way to go, Ubisoft, for creating more of a diversity game. And I was like, what the hell? Don't they realise that the map is actually in Africa / East Indies? And the lore side of it is based on Europe going into the East Indies looking for treasure and stuff like that. There is a lore to this game if read properly. But I was more on the lore side and that, and I was losing aspect of mechanics. So when it came to furniture and stuff, I was just handing it you and that what you needed. And you dropped me a couple of chests to see if I could get cosmetics. Like, I was so attached with the Huback twins. I wanted their costume, which I still, to this day, I still wear, along with the costume of the ship. I still have the ship design. When it came towards the show bit, it was bugged, weren't it? Way on booked. We were talking about that a minute ago, weren't we? Yeah, saying that I was way off booked, and it just felt like weren't fixing it. I don't know about you, but to me, it just felt like this game is slowly dying, and because the game was dying, it kind of showed a bad side of the community. Some really, really toxic players were starting to come out of woodwork. What do you think of that, about that, Blackbeard?
I think there was a couple of issues in season 2. I don't remember which boss it was, but I remember when that other boss came out. It was the same thing. You could only get it once a day, the first time in the morning.
Was that a bounty? It was that one that lifted up in air, weren't it, or something?
I think
Or were
it
it the
was a
one
bounty.
with torpedoes? It were in the Storm area. It was where
Yeah,
one Huback twins were.
yeah, and they actually
Yeah,
did this time. They did a Thursday update and they fixed it because they
yeah.
weren't going to leave her a week and get all the complaints like they did last time.
Hmm.
But I mean that brought in some terrible mechanics in the game. The fact that one of the brothers only ever appeared in rough waters, and it's like, but in season one, you could sail north of Saint Anne, and the water was clear. It was nice and flat, and it's like with the introduction of the brother that spawned up there, and that was it. From that moment on, the weather was 24/7. It was rough seas.
Yeah,
It was like being in the open seas part of the game, and it just stayed like that throughout the entire season. I mean, there was even a convoy that used to appear across the eastern side of the Red Isle and then travel north. Um, and it was a companion convoy,
yeah.
so everybody at that point was trying to get the Blackb1rd and that was the convoy that dropped it. And because it was rough seas like that, I think it's the first and only time I ever remember that a convoy did not leave chest markers in the water for you.
Yeah.
It's like whenever you sink one of the golden ships, you always get a golden chest icon that floats in the water. And this convoy was the one that did not. And because it was rough seas, it was very hard to see the markers of the in-game loot that you
And
could see
that's
in the sea.
and that's
And there
when
was
you got the new players who used to take out the bike people.
yeah, used to take out the back ship while you were
Yeah,
sinking the front one, and then you turn around and go back, and
and
you
it's
cannot
not
find it.
there.
It's there somewhere, but because there's no chess markers, yes, a lot of people went through a lot of work doing the convoys and never got the chess because, yes, it's the first time I've ever seen no chest markers ever drop from a convoy, but it was a really bad touch. Just another one of the serious hiccups that they had in season two. I mean, it's a strange game because you mentioned graphics, and it's like I remember that if sometimes when you go to pick up your roving orders, you go to Ile Michel and then sail out to the roving boat, and sometimes when you set sail, there's a black bird with a red throat that comes and lands actually right next to the captain, and you think, oh my god, that is so good. That is a beautiful piece of graphics. And then you go and collect your orders, and then you're back on the beach again. And then you stood there on the beach and you're looking out towards the water, and there are porpoises which are very, very well drawn, but they're actually popping in and out of the beach. They're coming out of the sand on the beach, and it's like
Mm.
so that that it's such a contrast between something being absolutely great and then yeah, really, it's coming out of the sand. It's actually inland instead of being in the water. And
And
then there's other islands where you get off and you can actually see the mesh on the
yeah,
floor.
you can
And it's like,
see the alpha map
yeah,
underneath. Like if it's still in beta, the game, or
and
even pushing back, it's even technical alpha.
and
Um,
sometimes when you're sailing at night and you can see all the star constellations and the moon and the way that they've done the clouds, and every now and again you see a shooting star, and it's like it is so good. And then it's like on the other hand, you've still got where you can see the mesh on the beach, and it's like so there's two completely different sides to what could be really really good. I mean, if they could
yeah,
sort out ground meshes and not have porpoises jumping out of the beach, yeah, I mean that would be a nice thing to see because graphically the game is very very good. And it just there's some really rookie mistakes they've made though with the ground mesh.
But when it comes to character design, and that I will disagree with, because Ubisoft lately cannot do a good basic character. They cannot do a character design, a male or female design. It is so diverse now. I don't know who they have as artists or whatever, but it's like they've forgotten what actually a man and a woman looks like. The poor hairstyles are really poor. They don't even look like hair. This could be down to an outdated engine, possibly. I don't know, but if that's the case, Ubisoft wants to be thinking about looking into their game engine or something like that, and look into how to improve it and that upon their games, because their games are actually good. Take Rainbow Six, take The Division, even Assassin's Creed. They're absolutely stunning, beautiful, and that. But when it comes to Sea Thieves, you look and you think, wow, it's everything's okay, but like you said, you come to environments, they're half finished. Hairstyles, I wouldn't even give them a grade. I can't do a characters in 3D. I'll do environments. I like doing environments. I do it for hobby wise. I've done like little motion things that I thought in my head and stuff. They're nothing really, but it's like something that I like to do. But yeah, when it's something like that, and it's like you feel like just going to the artist and saying, "Wake up! Do you think that looks like a woman? And do you think that looks like a bloke?" But seriously, you need your head screwing on. And this is actually even shown in Star Wars Outlaws. The hair in that, the figure is beautiful. The character is beautiful in there, but it's the hair that makes her look like a tramp. Literally, it makes her look like a tramp. She doesn't look like a female at all with that hairstyle.
Yeah, it's
And
funny you say that, but there's actually points in the game where I've been actually stood next to a character and I haven't realized that the female, because they've had a hat on or wherever, because it's like there's the women don't look like women. There are no boobs in the game, and it's like as much as I don't want to make it about boobs, it's like but women do have them, and
yeah,
that's how you normally tell somebody apart. I mean, I mean, all right, some people's faces look fairly similar, but I suppose as humans, we just look at the parts that we know that would separate them. But you
yeah,
can't do that in the game because the women are just as flat as the men.
yeah. And you're telling me all the way through history, women has had flat tits?
Well,
No
obviously,
way.
no. I mean,
No way.
season two it had its errors. There was a lot of mistakes made. And I think very slowly towards the end of the season, we got to a point that the game was manageable. Just,
Mm-hmm.
but by then, I mean this is the reason why I think 2 to 3 weeks before the end of the season that they released the extra warehouse space. I don't think they were supposed to do it then. I
Mm-hmm.
think they were supposed to do it at the start of season 3.
Yeah.
But because it'd been such a lousy season for them, they gave us something to try and to keep us going.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason why they introduced the extra warehouse space early,
Yeah.
because they were losing a lot of players at that point, and they wanted everybody to
How
get
many
online. It's
people
like,
were
wow,
it that left Discord now?
There was an article written there by one of their admins, who turned around and said, it was some way round about mid-season 2, and there was a comment on the official Discord that basically said, I think the comment went along the lines of, so today we've lost 7 members just from that Discord, which now makes 20 for this week in total. So and if you imagine that not many people actually play or use the voice inside the official Discord, and then you look at that exponentially across all the different Discords and all the people that weren't using a Discord. I mean, so that was 3 out of each of 3 to 7 of those groups every single day leaving, with a maximum of maybe up to 20 or 30 in a week. I mean, that must have meant that they were losing thousands of players every week because of all the difficulties that were going on with Season 2.
Yeah. So when it came to end Season 2, that's when I decided, right, enough's enough. That's how they've written them out. That is just so poor and dire. I just basically went from that and went into Sea of Thieves, and my community picked up from there. I was still doing pirating, but I changed the game into a proper pirate game. And my community, which I thank, by the way, don't forget, please hit the subscribe button if you are liking the content so far, and be sure to check out the other stuff. Much appreciated. They actually supported me even more, and it started to enjoy more of my content. But yeah, I left it behind, and I can't really say anything for season 3, but when I came back, which seemed really good, it felt like they changed so much. What did they actually change?
Well, I'll say this: Season 1 was quite good, but it was a chore doing the collection of the pieces of 8. Season 2, I'm going to be honest, was hard work. There were so many errors. There were so little drops of all the stuff that you could get for that season. It just wasn't happening. There was the convoy that didn't have chest markers. They were missing. So it's like Season 2 was really hard work. And giving us the extra warehouse space was really, really nice towards the end of the season. But Season 2 was hard work for anybody that played it then. By the time we got to Season 3, they'd made so many good choices. It's actually hard to list them, but they made a lot of improvements in the game. They gave us the ability to be able to assign ships. Oh yeah, that was another thing from Season 2, when you were building your fleet of collection ships. If you built a 40th ship, it disappeared along with all
I
of the
remember
stuff
that.
carrying, all the weapons, all the furniture. It disappeared, which they ended up having to do a compensation package for. Yeah, but luckily all of that had been sorted by the time we got to Season 3. And we now had an auto collect button as well, which meant that for certain regions, mostly in the East Indies, because I'm sure that they were aware that it is a terrible chore in the game collecting from the East Indies, they put a lot of them sections on auto collect. So now, as long as you own all of the factories within that region, you can actually just press and hold a button and it automatically collects minus a 5% tax. It collects all of the pieces of 8 from the factories within that region. Which made it a lot better, because another bug that was in Season 2 was that the Dooster foundries there was only 2 out of the 4 that you could actually use a helm lease to be able to get.
Yeah.
And you had to be really, really lucky to get a buyout or a solo takeover, because the hostile takeovers right at the beginning of the season where everybody was doing them and you had very little chance, because I'm not a PvP player, you had very little chance of winning one to get them. And yes, so even towards the end, I think I finally got it in a solo buyout. And that was the only reason why I had all 76s. And I didn't get that until the last week of Season 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, Season 3, it looks like they fixed the Dooster Foundries. You could use helm leases on them. They brought in the one-button collect on a lot of the regions. I think there's one area in the Red Isle where you can use it, and there are 2 in in fact might be 3 in Africa, which basically, so you've got 76 factories. You have 40, let's say, in your fleet, which is the maximum.
Yeah.
Now, one of them is the Dow, which you cannot apply to a factory, so that cuts it down to 39. You've got one player ship that you're driving, that cuts it to 38. And a lot of people like me like to keep 2 ships, one that they can switch between whichever role that you're doing. So that cuts it down to 37. And the way that they've done the areas that you can auto-collect now means that you don't have to assign a ship to those within the auto-collect system. So, with the exception of the 4 factories around Telok Penjara, you can now assign the 37 ships that you've got free to be able to go collecting. You can assign them to a factory and leave them there for the entire season. You don't have to come on every day and swap them around. That one's full, this one's empty, let's move the ship from the empty to the full. It got away with all of the ship chess, is what I used to call it, ship chess. Just moving the ships around from a full factory, from an empty factory to a full. That's all been fixed. The only ones that are different is that you can only have one ship assigned to the 4 that are around Telok Penjara, and the other one that's right in the south of Telok Penjara, that's covered by one of the auto collect.
Right.
And what I do is I have one ship there at Telok Penjara, and I just move it around each of the 4 each time that they've got a load. And then they bring that load back, and I just move it around to all 4 of them factories. But the rest of them are all on auto collect. So, yeah, that's one of the major good things that they brought in.
So, all in all, the future of this game, how long do you think it would last? Bear in mind, people, this game has been delayed 6 times before release. How long do you think that this game will last?
Season 3 so far has been a joy. There has been quite a lot to do on a daily basis, which was pretty much lacking in Season 2. The boss fights have been good, although that's the dragon encounters. At the beginning, they said they were too easy. I thought they were just right. So based on the feedback or whoever's decision it was, they made the dragons a lot harder, which meant they were a no-go zone. And I can say for absolute certainty, for the 3 weeks while they were sorting it all out, nobody went near any of the dragons at all because it wasn't worth it. You got sank 2 times or more, and that was it. Your shipwreck had disappeared. So all the stuff that you had on board when you arrived at that fight or anything you'd collected doing the fight, you lost. It was gone.
Yeah.
So that meant that people, you're not going to risk whatever you've managed to pick up within a fight. So it's like just 3 weeks, people never went anywhere near the dragons. And the thing that really highlighted it was when they first brought out Li Ning, they put her within the same zone as the Elder Dragon in the game. Which meant that besides 1 or 2 times that I actually was brave enough with a big group of people to go and do it.
Yeah. I can see where this is leading.
The first 2 weeks that Li Ning came into nobody went near it because it was right next to the Elder Dragon, which was still so OP, there was no way of being able to do it. So yeah, they just completely ignored Li Chan. That was it. There was no way getting around it. You could not go and do one without the dragon spawning. There was actually a method, if you timed it just right, where you had round about 5 minutes before the dragon spawned, while Li Ning was still there. So if you were quick enough and you got a big enough group, you could actually get in there, sink her. And then just by the time the dragon spawned, it was just enough time to pick up the chest and get the hell out of its circle of its AoE. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, you couldn't be anywhere near the dragon. They did tone it down, but not that I've seen. It's still not a good fight. It's a very, very difficult fight, and you are going to get sank more than once. Mm-hmm. And right now, there are still no mechanics in the game where if you get sank twice, your shipwreck is going to be there.
So, where do you think in the future this game, how long will it last for? Do you think getting back after this?
Being part of the season 4 testing people, I've got a very good idea of what's coming into the game. I mean, obviously, they keep some aces up the sleeve, which they don't even tell us about, and they are normally good changes that they make.
Yeah.
Season 4 is bringing in an awful
which
lot
you can't say.
Oh no! I wouldn't go into specifics. But it's bringing in a lot of new possibilities, and it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. It changes some of the mechanics in the game, which sort of is going to be a big game changer because you're going to have to start thinking about your builds. As for, I mean, it's hard to know what else they can do. I mean, the defenses are terrible. They've made so many. Number one, I don't understand the reason why they brought them in. I don't believe that anybody out there said, well, you know, this situation that we've got with the factories where we eventually get them through the season and then we move our ships around to empty them when they're full. I don't believe that anybody actually said, well, why don't you have a thing that's manufacturer defense, and if you're not successful, you lose the factory producing anything for 11 hours. Because when they first brought that in, it was terrible. There is no way on this earth you could actually manage to do successfully a defense, which they went and fixed several weeks later. But at that time, I mean, you were losing 3-4 factories a day that were going to be now not producing for 11-12 hours. It was a major thing. So it's like the defenses, they've had it's been a bit of a rough track with them. When they first came out, they were way too difficult. And then they modified them. And they made it where they were easier. There was less ships spawning at the same time. And they were only down for 4 hours, which meant that a lot of people like myself just didn't bother doing them. It's like, at that time, you could not fast travel to another event while you were in an event. and they'd made the defense mechanism a event. So it's like while one was active, you couldn't jump to other events and take part in them. So
Yeah.
basically, what I ended up doing was just using the fast travel. Well, no, it wasn't available back then. But I would sail out there. I'd get inside the area. I'd start the defense and then sail off. And within seconds, the factory goes down. It fails. But the positive side was then you're now free to fast travel to go and do bosses and any convoys that pop up. So it's like I know there's going to be some changes to the defenses, but what we've seen at the start of so season 2 ended with they were a lot easier to do whether you chose to do them or not, and they were only off for 4 hours. And then lo and behold, day 1 of season 3, they are back to 12 hours. It was either 12 or 14 hours that you lose them for. They hadn't made them more difficult, but it was like right at the beginning of season 3, they'd made them back to 11 and 12 hours. And it's like, yeah, so everybody had to do them. They fixed the bit where you could fast travel to them. So you could now, when you got a defense, you could click a button and fast travel to them, which was really helpful. And they said it was a bug fix that if you choose not to do them, you are still eligible to be able to do other world events at the same time. So while a defense was running, if you chose you weren't going to do it, or that factory was going to go down, you could then still travel and go and do a boss, or go and fast travel and do a convoy. So it was good, and at the same time really bad, because they put it back from 4 hours to 12. And nobody can be without a factory for 12 hours. Not at that point in the game. It's at week 1, when you need to get as many pieces of 8 as you can, so that you can start upgrading them to level 10, so you can get the flow coming back in and then upgrade your books. So yes, season 3 so far has been okay. One thing that they changed was they made the convoys. Approximately halfway through the season, they changed the basics of the convoys, and they've made them a lot better. Definitely worth doing, because you're getting rare hell materials from them. So they have made some really, really good changes. And the fact that you can now salvage, that was also a massive thing that they brought in with season 3. So it's like people like myself that have been collecting furniture that was hard to get in the game, and you really didn't want to sell them for 1 or 2 silver each, and you'd kept a lot of them in your warehouse just taking up spaces. They then gave us the ability to be able to salvage them back to the raw materials. Not everything that they made of, but it was about 85% of what it took to build it. You could break it down for and get back again, which has made a massive difference with warehouse space. Because no longer are you keeping anything that you can make. If you can make it, you don't need to keep it in your warehouse. And if you're getting it from a convoy, whether it's a weapon that you wouldn't necessarily use, or you're just getting way too many of one furniture drop, then you can just go and salvage it and get some of the raw materials back. So that's been a big thing. Fairly disappointing that they brought in extra stuff to refine, like the enhanced hell materials, which take 1 hour each, and a lot of the new weapons and furniture need at least 1, maybe 2 to make. It's a real pity that they set them to 1 hour each. I would have thought that 10 minutes would be more than enough to let people know the significance of how difficult this stuff is to get hold of. I think they could have done that by making it 10 minutes each, not an hour.
So summon this up in one word. What would you give Sea of Thieves? Skull and Bones.
Well, I've got to be honest, and I'm going to put it down to the fact that I've played all 3 seasons and know a little bit about what's coming with season 4.
But you can't
Uh,
include season 4.
yeah, okay. Well, what I've seen so far in season 1, 2, and 3, including all the problems in 2, I couldn't really justify in it giving it more than a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. But
Yeah.
what word would you describe the game as in one word?
Um, Fun. I think fun is still. I think that's still very apt. You can have a lot of fun in the game
Yeah.
uh, if you ignore the pitfalls. Yes, it can still be a fun game to play.
Well, on that note, we'll end it here. I'd like to thank Blackbeard, who he doesn't normally do these things. He's a bit shy himself, and he's um, decided to express his feelings for Skull and Bones, and yeah, let you know his opinions about it. If you've enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up, drop us a comment down below, tell us about your experiences and stuff like that with Skull and Bones. And I will catch you in the next video, people.